Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair aboard the UHS Discovery, staring at the endless stars through the main viewport. The ship had been exploring the outer edges of the Vega sector for 3 months now, mapping new systems and searching for signs of intelligent life. So far, they had found nothing but empty planets and dead rocks floating in space. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of the ship's engines. Lieutenant Lisa Chang worked at her communication station, monitoring radio frequencies for any unusual signals. Dr. Ben Rodriguez was in his lab below, studying samples from the last planet they had visited. Everything seemed normal until Chang suddenly sat up straight in her chair. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange," she said, her fingers dancing across her control panel. "It's very faint, but it looks like a distress signal." Morrison leaned forward. "Can you clean it up?" Chang worked for several minutes, adjusting filters and boosting the signal strength. Slowly, patterns began to emerge from the static. "It's definitely artificial, sir. Someone is trying to communicate. Any idea who?" "No, sir. The signal doesn't match any known species in our database. The patterns are completely new." Morrison stood up and walked over to Chang's station. On her screen, waves of light pulsed, in complex rhythms. It was beautiful in a strange way, almost like music made visible. "How far away is it coming from?" Morrison asked. "The signal is weak, but I estimate the source is about 12 light-years away. There's a star system in that direction that we haven't explored yet." Morrison thought for a moment. Their mission was to explore and make contact with new civilizations. This could be exactly what they were looking for. Set course for that system, maximum speed. The Discovery turned and jumped into hyperspace. During the 3-day journey, Chang worked constantly to decode the mysterious signal. Dr. Rodriguez joined her, bringing his knowledge of alien languages and communication methods. On the 2nd day, they made their first breakthrough. "Captain, you need to see this," Rodriguez called from the communications room. Morrison hurried down from the bridge. The screen showed the signal patterns, but now there were subtitles appearing below them. The translation was rough, but the meaning was clear. "Help us. We are dying. Our world is being destroyed. Please, anyone who receives this message, help us." Morrison felt a chill run down his spine. "Keep working on it. I want to know everything about these people." By the time they reached the system, Rodriguez and Chang had learned much more. The aliens called themselves the Kithara. They lived on a planet they called Verdania, the third world orbiting a yellow sun much like Earth's. From what they could understand, the Kithara were peaceful plant-like beings who had never known war. But now something terrible was happening to them. "Captain, look at this," Chang said as the Discovery dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. The main screen showed Verdania, but something was wrong. Large, dark patches covered parts of the planet's surface, like wounds on green skin. "What are those dark areas?" Morrison asked. Rodriguez checked his sensors. "They're dead zones, sir. No life signs at all. It's like something ate everything living in those regions." More distress signals were coming from the planet now, stronger and more desperate. The translation software was getting better at understanding the Kythera language. "They're being attacked by something called the Devourers," Chang reported. "From what I can understand, these Devourers consume all organic matter. They've already destroyed several other worlds in nearby systems." Morrison stared at the planet below. He could see the living parts of Verdania glowing softly with bioluminescent cities that looked like vast gardens, but the dead zones were spreading like a disease. "Sir, we're receiving a direct communication," Chang announced. "Put it on screen." The image that appeared was unlike anything they had ever seen. The Kythera looked like a tall tree made of crystal and light. Patterns of color flowed through its translucent body as it spoke. "Greetings, unknown travelers. I am called Luminous Grove of Wisdom. We detected your ship approaching our world. Are you here to help us?" Morrison stepped forward. "I am Captain Jake Morrison of the human ship Discovery. We received your distress signal. What is happening to your people?" The patterns in the alien's body shifted to darker colors. "The Devourers came to our system 6 months ago. They are like a plague that eats everything alive. We have no weapons, no way to fight them. Our people believe that all life is sacred, and should never be harmed. What about other species? Surely someone in this region of space can help you. The Kythera's light dimmed. We sent messages to the Galactic Council. They know of our situation, but they say we are too far from their territory to matter. They have forbidden anyone from helping us. Morrison felt anger building in his chest. They just abandoned you? The great powers of the galaxy met and decided our fate. The Zenthari said we have no strategic value. The Mercantile Union said helping us would not be profitable. The Crystalline Collective said our problems are not their concern. On the screen, more dark patches were appearing on Verdania's surface. Morrison could see that the planet was dying, and these peaceful beings had no way to save themselves. How long do you have? Morrison asked. The Devourers will reach our last cities within days. Our species will be extinct within a week. Morrison looked around the bridge at his crew. He saw the same anger and determination in their faces that he felt in his heart. Chang was clenching her fists. Rodriguez was shaking his head in disbelief. Luminous grove of wisdom. We're going to help you, Morrison said firmly. But the Galactic Council has forbidden it. Will your people not punish you? Morrison smiled grimly. Let me worry about that. Right now we need to figure out how to save your people. The Kythera's patterns brightened with what Morrison hoped was relief and gratitude. But even as they began planning, he knew they were facing an impossible task. His single ship against creatures that had destroyed entire worlds, with the most powerful governments in the galaxy standing against them. But Jake Morrison had not become a starship captain by backing down from impossible odds. Somewhere in the back of his mind, he was already forming a plan. Captain Morrison stood in his private quarters staring at the communication screen. Admiral Susan Parker's face looked back at him from across the galaxy. Her expression was stern, but Morrison could see concern in her eyes. Jake, you know I can't officially authorize this, she said quietly. The Galactic Council has made their position clear. If we interfere, they could kick humanity out of the Alliance entirely. Morrison clenched his jaw. Susan, these people are going to die. All of them. We're talking about an entire species being wiped out while everyone else just watches. I understand your feelings, but we have to think about Earth. About all of humanity. We can't risk our position in galactic politics for one species we just discovered. Can't we? Morrison stepped closer to the screen. What kind of people does that make us? What kind of species abandons others when they need help the most? Admiral Parker was quiet for a long moment. Morrison could see her wrestling with the decision. Finally, she sighed deeply. Officially, I'm ordering you to return to Earth immediately, she said, but then her voice dropped to a whisper. Unofficially, the ship's defender, Unity, Guardian, and Liberty just happened to develop engine problems near your location. They might need a few weeks to fix them. Morrison smiled for the first time in days. I understand, Admiral. We'll help them with their engine problems. Jake, be careful. If this goes wrong, I can't protect you. The Council will demand punishment. I know. Thank you, Susan. The screen went dark. Morrison returned to the bridge where his crew was already preparing for what they all knew was coming. The cavalry is on the way, Morrison announced. 4 more ships will be here within 2 days. Lieutenant Chang looked up from her station. Sir, I've been monitoring Kythera communications. The situation is getting worse. The Devourers have consumed 3 more cities since yesterday. Dr. Rodriguez entered the bridge carrying a datapad. Captain, I've been studying the information the Kythera sent us about their technology. It's incredible. They can grow living buildings, create ships from organic matter, and even heal injuries using plant-based medicine. But they have no weapons. At all? Morrison asked. None. Their entire civilization is built around the idea that harming other living things is wrong. They've never even considered making weapons. Engineer Danny Walsh joined them from the lower decks. Sir, I've been looking at their bioships. They're amazing. They can repair themselves and adapt to different environments. But they're completely undefended. A single laser blast could destroy one. Morrison nodded. What about the Devourers? What do we know about them? Rodriguez consulted his pad. They're some kind of hive mind species. Each individual is connected to all the others. They consume organic matter and convert it into more of themselves. The more they eat, the stronger they become. Weaknesses? Unknown. The Kithara have never been able to hurt them. Every time they try to fight back, the Devourers just adapt and become stronger. 2 days later, the promised ships arrived. Captain Morrison met with the other commanders aboard the Discovery. Captain Ryan Burke of the Liberty was the senior officer, but he made it clear that Morrison was in charge of the operation. "We're all volunteers," Burke said. "Every person on every ship chose to be here. Earth Command made sure of that." Captain Linda Ross of the Defender nodded. "My crew is ready for whatever comes next." Morrison looked around the table at the 5 captains. "We're about to do something that has never been done before. We're going to save an entire species that the galaxy has written off as hopeless." The combined human fleet moved toward Verdania. As they got closer, Morrison could see the planet more clearly. The Kithara cities were beautiful beyond description. They looked like vast gardens that glowed with soft light. Rivers of energy flowed between them like streams of liquid starlight. But the dark dead zones were spreading faster now, eating away at this paradise. "My God," whispered Captain Burke over the communications channel. "It's the most beautiful world I've ever seen, and we're about to watch it die," added Captain Ross grimly. Morrison opened a channel to the planet. Luminous Grove of Wisdom appeared on screen, but his patterns were much dimmer than before. "Human friends, you have returned, but I fear you are too late. The Devourers will reach our final cities within hours." "We're not giving up," Morrison said firmly. "We have 5 ships now, and trained crews. We're going to get your people out of there. But where can we go? The Devourers will follow us wherever we flee." Morrison had been thinking about this problem for days. "We'll find a way. First, we need to evacuate as many of your people as possible." Engineer Walsh had been working with the Kithara scientists to modify their bioships. The living vessels could carry thousands of Kithara at once, but they needed protection from Devourer attacks. "Sir, we figured out how to link our defensive systems to their bioships," Walsh reported. "Our shields can protect them during evacuation runs." The evacuation began immediately. Human fighter pilots flew escort missions while Kithara bioships carried refugees to safety. Pilot Maya Chen led the first squadron down to the planet's surface. "This is incredible," she radioed back. "The Kithara cities are alive. The buildings are actually growing trees and plants. I've never seen anything like it." But the Devourers were closing in fast. Morrison watched on his screens as the dark tide of destruction moved toward the remaining Kithara settlements. The creatures looked like black oil flowing across the landscape, consuming everything in their path. "We need to move faster," Morrison ordered. "How many more evacuations can we manage?" Dr. Rodriguez was working directly with the Kithara to coordinate the rescue. "They estimate about 2 million survivors left on the planet. We've saved maybe 50,000 so far." It wasn't enough. At this rate, most of the Kithara would die before they could be evacuated. Morrison stared at the tactical display, trying to find a solution. "Sir," Chang called out, "I'm detecting massive Devourer movement. They're launching what looks like a final assault on the remaining cities." Morrison made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. "All ships, target the uninhabited areas between the Devourers and the Kithara cities. We're going to deny them resources." "Sir, you mean destroy parts of the planet?" Burke asked over the comm. Morrison's voice was heavy with sorrow. "It's the only way to buy time for more evacuations. Fire." The human ships opened fire on Verdania itself, turning beautiful forests into burning wastelands. It went against everything the Kithara believed, but it slowed the Devourer advance just enough to save thousands more lives. As the last evacuation ships lifted off from the dying planet, Morrison watched Verdania burn. They had saved maybe a quarter of the Kithara population. It was a victory, but it felt like failure. The real battle was just beginning. The refugee ships floated in space like wounded birds. Morrison stood on the bridge of the Discovery, watching dozens of Kithara bioships drift nearby. Each one carried thousands of survivors from Verdania. Their once bright hulls were dim with grief and exhaustion. Captain, we have a problem, Lieutenant Chang announced from her station. Long-range sensors are picking up Devourer scouts. They're following the refugee trail. Morrison cursed under his breath. The creatures were hunting the survivors even in space. How long before they reach us? At their current speed, maybe 6 hours. Dr. Rodriguez entered the bridge looking tired but excited. Captain, I've been working with the Kithara scientists. We might have found something important. What kind of something? Rodriguez activated the main screen. It showed microscopic images of devourer tissue samples the Kithara had managed to collect. The devourers adapt to any weapon we use against them. Energy weapons, projectiles, even nuclear explosives. They just absorb the damage and become stronger. So conventional warfare is useless, Morrison said. Exactly. But the Kithara showed me something interesting. Look at this. The screen changed to show human technology mixed with Kithara biosystems. Their living ships can actually merge with our technology. We could create hybrid vessels that heal themselves and adapt to enemy attacks. Engineer Walsh joined them. Sir, I've been thinking about this wrong. We can't fight the Devourers the way we fight other enemies. But maybe we don't need to fight them at all. Morrison raised an eyebrow. Explain. The Devourers consume organic matter, right? What if we could hide the organic matter from them? The Kithara have biotechnology that could create mobile shelters, living ships that could carry entire populations. Mobile shelters that go where? Morrison asked. Dr. Rodriguez smiled. That's where it gets interesting. The Kithara have been studying dead worlds for centuries, trying to understand how to bring life back to them. They know how to terraform planets, but they've never had the military protection to actually do it. The plan began to take shape. Instead of trying to fight the Devourers directly, they would focus on keeping the Kithara alive and mobile. The human ships would provide military protection while the Kithara used their biotechnology to create new homes on worlds the Devourers couldn't reach. We're not just evacuating them, Morrison realized. We're giving them the ability to survive anywhere. The first test came sooner than expected. The Devourer scouts arrived ahead of schedule, moving through space like a dark cloud. Morrison watched them approach on his tactical display. All ships, defensive positions around the refugee fleet. Morrison ordered. Do not engage, unless they attack first. But the Devourers had no interest in the human ships. They moved directly toward the bioships carrying Kithara survivors. Morrison realized with horror that the creatures could sense organic life even through the ship hulls. They're not interested in us, Captain Burke reported from the Liberty. They only want the Kithara. Morrison made a snap decision. All fighters, launch. Maya, I need your squadron to get between those creatures and the refugee ships. Pilot Maya Chen's voice crackled over the comm. Roger that, Captain. Squadron Alpha launching now. The space battle that followed was unlike anything the humans had ever experienced. The Devourers didn't use ships or weapons. They simply swarmed through space like living missiles, trying to crash into the bioships and begin consuming them. Maya's fighters darted between the attackers and their targets, using precision strikes to destroy individual Devourers. But for everyone they killed, 2 more seemed to take its place. Captain, we're not going to be able to stop them all, Maya reported. Her fighter was smoking from a near miss. That's when the Kithara surprised everyone. Luminous Grove of Wisdoms. Voice came over the communications channel. Human friends, we have an idea. Our bioships can change shape. What if we made them look like your ships? Dr. Rodriguez caught on immediately. Camouflage. If the bioships look like human vessels, the Devourers might not recognize them as organic. Within minutes, the Kithara bioships began to transform. Their living hulls shifted and hardened, taking on the angular appearance of human spacecraft. From the outside, they looked almost identical to the Discovery and her sister ships. The effect was immediate. The Devourers became confused, unable to distinguish between the organic ships and the mechanical ones. Their attacks became random and unfocused. It's working, Maya reported with excitement. They can't tell which ships have Kithara on them anymore. But the victory was temporary. Morrison knew the Devourers would eventually adapt to this trick, too. They needed a permanent solution. Walsh, how long to get those hybrid ships ready? Give me 12 hours, sir. The Cathera are fast learners. They're already integrating our shield technology into their biosystems. The fleet retreated to a nearby asteroid field where they could work in relative safety. Morrison watched as human engineers worked alongside Cathera scientists, sharing knowledge and techniques. It was the first time in galactic history that two species had combined their technologies so completely. The results were amazing. The new hybrid ships were part machine, part living organism. They had human weapons and shields, but they could also heal damage and adapt to new threats like the Cathera bioships. Sir, incoming transmission, Chang announced. It's from the Galactic Council. The screen activated to show Chairman Apex Vex of the Zinthari Empire. His reptilian features were twisted with anger. Captain Morrison, you are in violation of Council. Directive 447. You will cease all military operations in the quarantine zone immediately. Morrison stepped forward. These people are dying. We're not going to abandon them just because your council finds it inconvenient. The quarantine exists to prevent the Devourer threat from spreading. Your interference puts the entire galaxy at risk. The only thing at risk here is your political reputation, Morrison shot back. You condemned an entire species to death because helping them wasn't profitable. Apex Vex's eyes narrowed. You will withdraw immediately or face the consequences. Morrison cut the transmission without another word. He turned to his crew, who were all watching him with expressions of determination and pride. Well, I guess we're officially outlaws now, he said with a grim smile. Sir, Chang reported, I'm picking up multiple hyperspace signatures. Big ones. Morrison's blood ran cold. How big? Looks like a Zinthari battle fleet, sir. At least 20 ships. The political consequences of their rescue mission were about to become very real. But Morrison looked out at the hybrid ships where humans and Cathara worked side by side, creating something new and wonderful from their combined knowledge. Whatever happened next, they had already accomplished something important. They had shown that different species could work together, that compassion was stronger than politics, and that some things were worth fighting for no matter what the cost. The real test was just beginning. The Zinthari battle fleet emerged from hyperspace like angry hornets. 20 massive warships arranged themselves in a battle formation around Morrison's small rescue fleet. Each Zinthari vessel was 3 times larger than the Discovery, bristling with weapons that could destroy planets. Morrison stood on his bridge watching the enemy ships surround them. His 5 human vessels and the handful of hybrid bioships looked tiny compared to the Zinthari armada. Captain Morrison, came a cold voice over the communications channel. This is Admiral Corax of the Zinthari Imperial Fleet. You will surrender immediately and submit to Council justice. Morrison stepped forward. Admiral Corax, we are conducting a humanitarian rescue operation. These people have done nothing wrong except ask for help. The Council has declared this system off limits. Your actions threaten galactic security. Surrender now or we will take you by force. Before Morrison could respond, another voice cut into the channel. Admiral Corax, this is Admiral Susan Parker of the Earth Defense Force. I suggest you reconsider your position. A new fleet of ships dropped out of hyperspace behind the Zinthari formation. Morrison felt his heart jump as he recognized the massive bulk of the UHS Liberty, Admiral Parker's flagship, accompanied by 15 other human warships. Admiral Parker's face appeared on the main screen. She looked calm, but her eyes were hard as steel. Admiral Corax, you are threatening Earth vessels engaged in a legal rescue operation. Legal? Corax's reptilian features twisted with anger. The Council has forbidden any interference in this system. The Council does not speak for Earth, Parker replied coolly. We recognize no authority that condemns innocent people to death. The standoff stretched for tense minutes. Morrison could see weapon systems charging on both fleets. One wrong move could start a war that would tear the galaxy apart. Then something unexpected happened. A third fleet appeared at the edge of the system. These ships were smaller, with flowing curves and crystalline hulls that caught the starlight like prisms. This is Ambassador Melody of Deep Waters of the Aquatic Collective, came a musical voice over the communications channel. "We have come to offer sanctuary to the Kithara refugees." Admiral Korak sounded confused. "The Aquatic Collective has no business in this system." "We have every right to offer aid to those in need," the ambassador replied. "Our worlds have room for refugees, and our laws permit us to grant asylum to any who ask for it." More ships began arriving. The nomadic fleet sent transport vessels. The Peaceful Gardens Federation offered medical ships. Even some of the smaller member worlds of the Council sent support ships, openly defying their own government. Dr. Rodriguez was monitoring all the communications traffic. "Captain, it's incredible. News of what we're doing has spread across the galaxy. Dozens of smaller species are sending help." Morrison felt a surge of hope. They weren't alone anymore. But the bigger surprise came from an unexpected source. Luminous Grove of Wisdom requested a private channel to speak with all the fleet commanders at once. "Friends from many worlds," the Kithara leader began, his bioluminescent patterns pulsing with calm determination. "We are grateful beyond words for your help, but we do not wish to cause war between your peoples." "You're not causing anything," Morrison said firmly. "This is about doing what's right." "Perhaps there is another way," Luminous Grove of Wisdom continued. "We have something to offer. Our biotechnology could help many of your worlds. We can share healing techniques, methods to grow food in harsh environments, and ways to repair damaged ecosystems." Admiral Parker caught on immediately. "You're offering to share your technology with anyone who helps you." "We offer it freely, to all who show compassion. Our knowledge belongs to all living beings." The effect was immediate and dramatic. The smaller species who had come to help suddenly realized they weren't just saving the Kithara. They were gaining access to revolutionary biotechnology that could transform their civilizations. Captain Linda Ross of the Defender was monitoring Council communications. "Sir, the smaller Council members are demanding an emergency session. They want to discuss changing the quarantine policy." Even some of the major powers began to waver. The Healers Consortium, a medical organization that worked across multiple species, openly announced they were setting up treatment centers using Kithara biotechniques. "This is unprecedented," Dr. Rodriguez said with excitement. "The Kithara healing methods could revolutionize medicine across the galaxy. They can regrow lost limbs, cure genetic diseases, even reverse aging." Admiral Korax was receiving urgent messages from his superiors. Morrison could see the Zenthari commander's frustration growing as his political support crumbled. "The Council will not be swayed by this chaos," Korax announced, but his voice lacked its earlier confidence. That's when Ambassador Claire Thompson made her move. Morrison had been wondering when Earth's diplomatic corps would get involved. Ambassador Thompson was known throughout the galaxy as one of the most skilled negotiators alive. Her ship, the diplomatic vessel Harmony, appeared at the edge of the system. Thompson's calm voice cut through all the military posturing. "Admiral Korax, I formally request a ceasefire while the Council debates this matter. Surely the Zenthari Empire does not wish to be remembered as the power that prevented life-saving medical advances from reaching those in need." It was a masterful diplomatic move. If Korax attacked now, he would be seen as preventing medical aid from reaching sick and dying people across the galaxy. The Zenthari admiral hesitated. Morrison could almost see him calculating the political costs of different actions. "The ceasefire will last for 72 hours, Korax finally announced. "After that, Council law will be enforced." It wasn't a victory, but it was time. Morrison opened channels to all the ships in the growing refugee fleet. "This is our chance," he announced. "We have 3 days to get the Kithara to safety and show the galaxy what we can accomplish when we work together." The next 3 days were a whirlwind of activity. Human engineers worked with aquatic collective scientists and Kithara biotechnicians to create amazing new technologies. The hybrid bioships became templates for a whole new type of spacecraft that could heal themselves and adapt to any environment. Medical teams from dozens of species learned Kithara healing techniques. Agricultural specialists discovered how to grow crops on worlds that had been barren for centuries. Environmental engineers found ways to restore damaged ecosystems using living technology. But the most important discovery came from an unexpected source. A young human scientist named Kate Williams, working closely with a Cathera researcher called Harmony of Growing Things, made a breakthrough that would change everything. "Captain, you need to see this," Dr. Rodriguez called urgently. Morrison hurried to the science lab where Williams and her Cathera partner were working. "We've been studying the devourer samples," Williams explained, her eyes bright with excitement. "We found something incredible. The devourers can't consume synthetic materials or adapt to certain quantum frequencies used in human technology." Morrison felt his heart skip a beat. "What does that mean?" Harmony of Growing Things pulsed with patterns of hope. "It means we can create sanctuary fields, areas where organic life is protected from the devourers. We can make entire star systems safe." Morrison stared at the data on the screen. If this was true, they hadn't just saved the Cathera. They had found a way to stop the devourer threat entirely. The 72-hour deadline was almost up, but Morrison no longer cared about Admiral Corax or the Council's threats. They had discovered something that would change the galaxy forever. 3. Question now was whether the major powers would try to suppress this discovery or embrace it. Morrison had a feeling he was about to find out which kind of species really ruled the galaxy. Kate Williams stood in the main laboratory aboard the Discovery, surrounded by equipment that looked like it belonged in a science fiction movie. Human technology mixed with Cathera biosystems created devices that pulsed with living light. Beside her, Harmony of Growing Things worked with movements that looked like a graceful dance. "The sanctuary field generator is ready for testing," Williams announced over the ship's communication system. Captain Morrison and Dr. Rodriguez hurried to the lab. Morrison looked at the strange device on the table. It looked like a crystal tree growing through a piece of human machinery. "This thing can really protect organic matter from the devourers?" "The theory is sound," Harmony of Growing Things replied, patterns of hope flowing through its translucent body. "The quantum frequencies will create a barrier that the devourers cannot cross or adapt to," Williams nodded excitedly. "We've tested it on small samples. The devourer tissue can't consume anything inside the field. It just stops working completely." "How big an area can it protect?" Morrison asked. "Right now, maybe a city. But if we can build larger generators, we could protect entire planets, maybe even whole star systems." The 72-hour deadline had passed. Admiral Corax's Xanthari fleet was still waiting at the edge of the system, but they hadn't attacked. Morrison suspected they were receiving new orders from the Council as word of the sanctuary technology spread. "Sir, we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth," Lieutenant Chang announced from the bridge. Morrison hurried up to take the call. Ambassador Thompson appeared on the main screen, but she wasn't alone. Behind her stood representatives from dozens of species, including some Morrison didn't recognize. "Captain Morrison, the Council has called an emergency session. They want to see a demonstration of your sanctuary technology." Morrison raised an eyebrow. "They want us to prove it works?" "The smaller Council members have been pressuring the major powers all week. If your technology can really stop the devourers, it changes everything. Even the Xanthari are interested now." Morrison looked around his bridge at his crew. They had all risked their careers and possibly their lives for this moment. "Set course for the Council chambers. It's time to show them what we've accomplished." The journey to the Galactic Council headquarters took 3 days. Morrison's small fleet was joined by ships from over 30 different species, all carrying Cathera refugees and examples of the new biotechnology. It was the largest gathering of different civilizations in galactic history. The Council chambers were built inside a massive space station that orbited a neutral star. Morrison had never seen it before, but the structure was impressive. Hundreds of docking bays accommodated ships from every corner of the galaxy. The demonstration took place in a specially prepared chamber that could safely contain devourer specimens. Morrison watched from the observation deck as Williams and Harmony of Growing Things activated their sanctuary field generator. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Living plants placed inside the field remained healthy and green, while identical plants outside the field were consumed by the devourers within seconds. The creatures pressed against the barrier like insects against glass, unable to penetrate the quantum frequency shield. The council chamber erupted in discussions. Morrison could hear dozens of different languages as representatives debated what they had just witnessed. Chairman Apex Vex of the Zenthari stood slowly. His reptilian features were unreadable, but Morrison could sense his reluctance. The demonstration is impressive. But how do we know this technology can be scaled up? That's when Admiral Parker made her entrance. The doors to the chamber opened and she walked in carrying a datapad that glowed with official seals. "We've already begun construction of large-scale sanctuary generators," she announced. 3 systems have volunteered to test the full-sized versions. If successful, we can begin protecting entire regions of space. The leader of the Mercantile Union, a insect-like being called Profit Seeker Vex, clicked his mandibles nervously. "What are the costs of this technology? Who controls it?" Morrison stepped forward. "Nobody controls it. The Cathara have made their knowledge freely available to any species that wants it. There are no patents, no licensing fees, no restrictions." This caused another uproar in the chamber. The major powers were used to controlling advanced technology, not giving it away freely. Luminous Grove of Wisdom requested permission to speak. His patterns were brighter than Morrison had ever seen them, pulsing with calm confidence. "Great leaders of many worlds," the Cathara began. "My people believe that knowledge belongs to all living beings. We share our biotechnology not for profit or power, but because it is right. The sanctuary fields can protect any species that needs them." Ambassador Thompson seized the moment. "I propose that the Council formally recognize the compassionate intervention doctrine. Any species facing extinction should receive aid from those capable of providing it." The debate that followed lasted for hours. The major powers argued about precedent and political consequences, but the smaller species, energized by what they had seen, demanded action. Finally, the vote was called. One by one, the council members cast their decisions. The Zenthari voted against the doctrine, as did the Crystalline Collective, but they were outnumbered by dozens of smaller species who had been inspired by the human example. The compassionate intervention doctrine passed, by a margin of 3-1. Morrison felt a weight lift from his shoulders. They had done more than save the Cathara. They had changed the fundamental laws that governed how species treated each other. 6 months later, Morrison stood on the bridge of the UHS Sanctuary, the first ship built using combined human and Cathara technology. The vessel was beautiful, with flowing lines that seemed almost alive. Its biometal hull could repair damage and adapt to any environment. Around him, the crew worked with quiet efficiency. Half were human, half were Cathara, and all were dedicated to the same mission, protecting vulnerable species from threats they couldn't handle alone. "Sir, we're receiving a distress signal," reported Lieutenant Chang from her station. She was older now, wearing the insignia of a full commander. "Another species in trouble?" Morrison asked. "Yes, sir. The gentle singers of the Harmony system. They're being threatened by space pirates." Morrison smiled. This was exactly the kind of situation the Sanctuary Defense Force had been created to handle. "Set course for the Harmony system, maximum speed." As the ship jumped into hyperspace, Morrison looked out at the stars and thought about how much had changed. The galaxy was still far from perfect, but it was better than before. Species helped each other now, sharing knowledge and resources, instead of competing for dominance. The Cathara had established new colonies in 12 different systems, all protected by sanctuary fields. Their biotechnology had revolutionized medicine, agriculture, and environmental science across hundreds of worlds. And at the center of it all was a simple idea that humans had refused to abandon, that every life was worth saving, no matter what the cost. Morrison's communication console chimed with an incoming message. Ambassador Thompson's face appeared on the screen. "Jake, the Council wants to discuss expanding the Sanctuary Defense Force. 3 more species have volunteered ships and crews." Morrison nodded. "The more, the better. There are a lot of people out there who need help." The Zenthari are even considering joining. They're finally starting to understand that compassion isn't weakness. As the ship raced toward its next mission, Morrison reflected on how a simple decision to answer a distress call had changed the galaxy forever. Sometimes the most important choices were also the simplest ones: to help when others needed it, to stand up for what was right, and to never abandon those who couldn't protect themselves. The universe was vast and dangerous, but it was also full of hope. And as long as there were people willing to reach out to strangers in need, that hope would never die.